Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. That's a C minor blues scale, and I'm just adding some chords to it. That's what we're going to be running through today. This is a very, very simple method to have a very kind of effective, pleasant sounding improvisation style. Now, I'm going to be using some technical terms, like C minor blues scale, 7th chord, stuff like that. Don't worry about it. These are just names given to actually very, very simple things. And we're going to go through it step by step. So, first things first, you need to know the C minor blues scale. The minor blues scale doesn't have to be in C, but it's just like such an easy starting point, so that's where we're going to start. So C minor blues scale, it has these notes: C, E flat, F, F sharp, G, B flat, and C. So, just on its own, it sounds pretty cool. Before I get into how to, add to it and everything, better just make sure that you know the fingering for it. The fingering I use is a little bit different to what you should use. And basically, here's how it goes. The fingering should be 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or instead of 5, you can go to 1. The reason I use a different fingering, I play it almost like it's a chromatic scale. I kind of go 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1. And then sometimes I get my 4th finger in there. That is because I originally kind of learnt this wrong, but then I developed and became sort of attached to a certain kind of style that fingering lends itself to. So I've never actually fixed it. I just do it a little bit differently. But the way you're going to be doing it is 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3. No, that's my fingering. The way you're going to do it is 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. That's the right way of doing it. Okay, so we've got our notes, we've got our fingering. Now we're going to add a bass note. This is where it starts to get interesting. So there's 3 specific notes we're going to add. For C minor blues, we're going to add C in the bass. We're going to add F. And we're going to add G. Back to C. Okay, so those 3 notes are basically guaranteed to work well with this scale. If your hands are big enough, feel free to turn those bass notes into octaves. So that means, instead of just playing C here, you're going to play C and C, an octave apart. You don't always want to double up bass notes, but just, if you're trying to keep it simple, that's the way to get like a little bit more depth. All right, so bass notes, play the scale. So far, pretty simple. If you're still with me, if you're following that and that all sounds really easy, then we're now going to expand those bass notes into triads. So a triad is just when you take it's a 3-note chord, and we're going to be taking the 1st, 3rd, and 5th note of a scale. So we're in C minor, so we'll take C, E flat, G. And when we go to F, we're going to take F, A flat, C. And for G, we're going to take G, B flat, D. Now, if you are familiar with some of the scales and the triads, that might have sounded really simple. But if you're not familiar with the theory behind it, that's fine. You can rewatch that and write down the notes, and that's fine. So let me mess around in that scale, the C minor blues scale, playing those chords now. C minor to F minor. And then to G minor. And then we can end on C. Okay, so that's a bit more interesting than just having the bass notes. It's adding more of a harmony. Those are just simple triads. Okay, still with me? Then let's make those triads a bit more interesting. So a simple triad is 1, 3, 5. We're going to take the third, so the middle note, and we're going to move it up an octave. It just makes the chords sound a little richer, give them a bit more depth. It expands your range, because you're sort of covering more ground. You just have a kind of more open harmony. So it tends to sound nicer. Those triads that are sort of very close together, they can get muddy very easily. So that's why we like to open them up. Now, don't worry if you can't reach that. For me, that's my stretch. Like, that's pretty much as far as I can stretch. But if you can't do it, it's like totally cool to just break the chord apart. You do it quickly. So that's totally fine. You can play it as a solid chord or you can break it up. They're both going to be effective. You could even sort of just hit the bass note and then the two notes above it. So feel free to just break it up in some way that makes it easier for you to play. All right, so we're spreading our triads. Let's try that. Okay, just a bit of a richer sound. Now, something I will add here for anyone that's like keeping up is that I've been using mainly the minor chords. But something I should have said earlier is that you can actually play the major versions of those as well. So basically, if you know the C minor scale, there's C minor triad. If you know the C major scale, even sort of easier, that has the third note of C major scale is E. So that means we can play C major, F major, G major. Now, honestly, this is one of the reasons I wanted to make this video in particular, because that's so good. The fact that you can play this minor scale with the minor chords. But then, and it works, it's all great, but then you can play it with the major chords. I mean, that's so good. That means that you get so much out of that minor scale because that doubles the number of chords you can play with in the bass, very simply. I should have said that earlier because now we can open up our major chords as well. When you are actually playing around in this, feel free to mix them up. They don't have to all be major and they don't have to all be minor. You can mix and match. So I might go from C minor, and then I'll go to the F major. And that's quite warm, that's really nice. So you can mix and match them. I'll point out the reason this works is because it is a feature of jazz that it's often a little bit ambiguous whether you're in major or minor, and they'll often have chords which slide between them. Like they'll play a minor chord and then slide to the major note. So in C, that would be E flat to E natural. And, you'd probably recognize kind of like a... that kind of thing. That on every single chord I played there, I played the minor third followed by the major third. It's very, very effective, and it's a very distinctive and extremely common feature of jazz music. So that's why that works. That's why you can play a major chord and add the minor third, so major third down here, minor third up here, and it works. It probably needs a bit of context. So I absolutely love that. You get a lot out of this. Anyway, to get back on track, all I'm saying is one single minor scale, loads of different chords, major and minor chords. Okay, so now that we've got our chords spread out, now we want to think a little bit about actually controlling our improvisation. This is something I talk about in any improv video I make. It's such a big deal. I do this all the time. I'm totally guilty of this. But once you're very relaxed with the scale, there's this temptation to run around sort of very quickly. It's quite... You know, you want to run around like that, and I do it a lot, and, you know, to an extent, you can get away with that. Maybe you want to suddenly do something a bit flashy, so you run up and down the piano doing a scale or whatever. But on the whole, if you want your improvising to sound good, you need to rein it in, you need to slow it down, and you need to try and anticipate the sound you're going to make. And that's the key to actually getting a sort of coherent improv sound that sounds like you're actually playing a piece of music and not just playing random notes. Not that the random notes will sound bad, but just that it will sound better if you go slow and control it. All right, so I'll try and demonstrate that. So let's go. I'll pick a random note from the scale. I'll start on G. And I'm going to press G, and then I'm just going to wait. I'm going to think about what I want to happen next. Very simple. Okay, so I know that doesn't sound quite as flashy, but if you do that a lot, you start to be able to kind of really hear and anticipate what you want to happen. And of course, you can start to go faster. But, you know, I think when I improvise, it tends to be a bit of a mix. Like, I might hear something and I'll be like, yeah, I'll play that, that's good. And then add in a bit of randomness and then go back to the thing, the little theme that I just came up with. So it's kind of flashy random bits and then coherent thought out bits. All right, so I didn't want to make this too complicated because the whole point of this is to give you some relatively easy tools to improvise. So I do have more tips about this, but I'm just going to quickly summarize what we covered, and then I'm going to add some tips. So anyone that feels like, oh, this, yeah, I'm keeping track, this is easy, I can add more, there'll be a bit more to come. So firstly, you have your one single scale, C minor blues, C, E flat, F, F sharp, G, B flat, and back to C. Then you have your bass note. Okay, C, F, and G. Then you're going to expand those bass notes to triads. Okay, and then you're going to spread the triads to make them sound a bit more open. Okay, notice that to kind of balance it out, I didn't say this earlier, but when you expand your triads, I tend to sort of start moving around using more octaves in the treble, just to kind of balance out the deeper sound you start getting. So you spread your triads, and then you go slow, and you try to control your improv just by trying to hear the sound you want before you actually do it. All right, so here's a couple tips little things to just improve it a little bit. I've given you C, F, and G. You don't have to stick to C, F, and G. You can add other things. You can experiment. Some things will work, some things won't. But I can tell you right now that when I improvise in C minor, two other notes that work really well are A flat and E flat. I'm not going to run through in detail, but I'm going to play chords from A flat and E flat. So I'm going to start with C minor. Let's go to A flat straight away. So warm, so nice. That was E flat there. Let's go to F major. Let's go back to A flat, I like it. E flat major, it's really nice. And into C. Okay, so there we go. So that's C, F, G, A flat, and E flat. They work really nicely. Try anything. But, if you go to like a C sharp, for example. I mean, it's not quite as clean. It's not an obvious sound. It doesn't mean it's wrong. Sometimes you come up with some things that sound a bit dissonant. Doesn't mean they're wrong. That might be the effect you want. But anyway, experiment. Tip number 2, without going into a long video about 7th chords, if you know what a 7th chord is, add some 7th chords. Minor 7th chords for preference. For anyone wondering, that is it. If you add the minor 7th of the scale you're in, I won't explain that right now, but it turns C minor triad into a C minor triad with B flat. It's instantly much more jazzy. Let's do it with the F minor chord. Let's go to a G major chord, but we'll add the 7th anyway. That sounded bad because I hit the wrong note. All right, it's kind of a subtle difference, but just adding in that minor 7th on your left hand just gives a much more like jazzy feel to the harmony. So that's a good idea. And my last tip is to use repetition. So what I mean is, let's say you start improvising and you do something very simple, and then you think, okay, I'm going to keep that, and I'm going to repeat it later on, or keep repeating it, and that will give the piece some coherency, some kind of structure. So I'll try and do it. I'm going to keep things fairly simple, but okay, let's do okay, that's it. That's what we're going to repeat. Let's change the chord and repeat it. Okay, not a full repeat because I decided it would sound better if I went up. So a little variation on it. Okay, so I did like some random stuff in the middle, and then I went back to it an octave lower. Slight variation on it. Okay, so suddenly improvising has a theme. It's no longer like totally random. And you can actually keep... I'm not a great improviser, but if the people are really good, they can sort of come up with a theme like that, and then they expand on it and expand on it, and they sort of add layers. And the result they can get is, they can play for like 10 minutes and at the end, they still have the same idea that they had at the start. And it's really, really impressive. But for our purposes, it's fine. Keep it simple. Still sounds really, really Nice. Okay. That's all I have to say on it. I hope it was fun, because that's why I'm making these improvisation videos. I just think it's like really, really rewarding to have like these kind of little formulas that you can follow and then get so much out of them. Anyway, if you did find it fun or helpful, give my video a like, just because it's really helpful and encouraging at this point. So I'd appreciate that. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.